Welcome to Fitness Explained, the podcast. I'm your host, Mel Waller. I'm a third-year sport and exercise science student, and I have a passion for science and helping others create a balanced and healthy lifestyle through understanding the science behind health and fitness. Hello everyone, welcome back to Fitness Explained, the podcast. I'm your host Mel Waller, and today we are going to be talking about going back into the gym / regular exercise routine, and there are certain ways that you can return to training that are a little bit more healthy and sustainable for your future training than others. So there definitely is like a wrong way to return to training, but there are lots of right ways to return to training, and so obviously it depends for you, and if you're an athlete or you're just someone that really likes doing a certain sport, there obviously are going to be certain ways of doing that cater to you. So this is going to be quite a broad list of things, but I think it can apply to most people, and as well as like you can pick and choose obviously which apply to you the most. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the item, exercise, product, task, or food I've been enjoying recently or in the past week. So I've been doing this, maybe 4 weeks. So obviously not in the past week, but it's been recently, I guess. So I go on a weekly supermarket shop, and then I'll go on one, maybe if that, supermarket shop to top up stuff. So for example, I cook all my dog's food, so which is kind of odd, I know, but she's a really fussy eater, and I like knowing what's going into her food. So, and it's kind of cheaper most of the time as well. It usually is. So where was I getting with that? I don't know what I was doing. So yeah, that's why. So that's why I might go to the shops once a week just to top up. Like I've run out of milk or bread or like chicken mince for the dog or something like that. So what I have been enjoying though recently is going to Aldi and not Coles or Woolies, which is where I normally go. It's just so much cheaper, and I know like some people are a bit iffy about it, but the main reason I really, really enjoy it is the quality for the price. So I find in Coles or Woolies, I sort of find it a little bit more difficult to see where the produce and the fresh produce comes from. So I do prefer to buy Australian and Victorian grown produce purely because it's local and it's going to be a little bit fresher. And I do buy a lot of frozen vegetables because they normally are a bit more fresh. So yeah, where am I getting at? Yeah, with Aldi, a lot of their produce is a lot more seasonal than Coles or Woolies, which is great. And also, they're really good at like labeling where something is grown, and the vast majority of their fresh produce is grown in Australia. And like another great thing about locally grown produce is that it's better for the environment some of the time, for the reason of you don't have to ship all the produce from one country to Australia. So that's also good about that. So yeah, that's what I've been really enjoying. You know, I used to be a bit iffy about Aldi. I thought, it looks a bit weird. There's no like mainstream brands, but like any non-mainstream brand I've tried tastes pretty much the same, and it's so much cheaper. I eat a lot of cheese, which, you know, who doesn't? It's awesome. I love cheese so much. Like our household probably buys one or so, maybe two slices. I don't know what you'd call them. What are they called again? Like slivers of cheese, or like little packets of cheese. So like a Gruyere or a Manchego or cheddar or goat's cheese. So we buy one or two of them a week, and so it's way more affordable, and you're basically getting the same thing. So that's what I've been really enjoying recently. I hope I haven't said this before in the podcast. My like short-term memory has been pretty crappy at the moment because of like I'm very close to finishing my degree, as I've probably mentioned 1,000 times before in the recent podcasts. But yeah, so I'm sorry if I've already mentioned Aldi, but I'm pretty sure I haven't. So without further ado, let's move into the main segment. Okay, so as I said before, today we are going to be talking about how to best and what's a good word? Efficiently move back into training now that obviously Dan Andrews, particularly for Melbourne people listening, but this can apply to anyone, you know, when you're moving back into the gym in general. Say you've had a long stint off because of maternity reasons or pregnancy, because you've had an injury, because you just got lazy like me sometimes, and now you're coming back because you're like, I feel pretty crap at the moment and I know exercise makes me feel good, so maybe I should get back onto that. You can apply this to most of those situations, but as I said, take as you will, and yeah, hope you enjoy. So what I want to say before I give all the reasons why or how you can best return back to training is, I want to say, if you are someone that goes to the gym, there is gym etiquette, and I am taking my platform to say, please clean the weights before and after you use them, the equipment too. It's just, you know, it's common courtesy. It's just a little bit ignorant, I find, if people don't clean them for the climate that we are in at the moment. That and just like clean up after yourself. You know, it's nothing worse than someone who just leaves their weights around, or if you put your weights back in the wrong position. Like, obviously, if you found them completely, you know, everywhere on the rack and there's no order to them, okay, that's a little bit difficult. I'm not asking you to, you know, reorganize the gym, but if you found the 10 kilo weight plate on the 10 kilo weight plate rack, then put it back there, please, and not just wherever you see fit. That's all I'm saying. It grinds my gears when people just leave crap everywhere, particularly if you're someone who's a heavy lifter and you've just got, you know, 2 25 kilo plates either side of your weightlifting bar, or barbell rather, and then you just leave them there for some, you know, 50 kilo 150 centimeters tall person to come along and clean up after you. So someone who obviously is going to struggle with cleaning that up, you know, that just sort of stuff like that, that courtesy, I just thought I'd want to say to get out of the way. But anyway, moving on. So as I said before, I want to make sure that everyone knows that everyone trains differently and for different reasons. So I'm going to give just general tips and tricks, and obviously pick up what you will. You don't have to take these tips religiously. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm not scary, I promise. So first up is pretty obvious one, but even I don't even listen to my advice when I say this stuff, and sometimes I hurt myself in the process. So don't go too hard too fast. I think a lot of people do, including myself, as I said, but what I mean by this is, don't train until you feel completely exhausted and you're going to vomit. I once met someone who literally once a week or so would train with the intention of vomiting, not from like a bulimia or anything like that standpoint, from the fact that they didn't feel like they had put enough effort into the session unless they had vomited at the end, which I think is just a completely like horrible way of thinking about training. That's just a really, you know, toxic is such an overused word, but that is a really toxic way of thinking about training that serves no purpose. Like, why would you want to do that? Anyway, moving back to the main point though, is don't feel that you need to train to absolute exhaustion when you first get in, because often that's going to make you feel super fatigued and result in a lot of DOMS, so delayed onset muscle soreness, and that leaves you out of the gym for longer, meaning you have to rest for longer. So what is important is consistency, and brief quality sessions is what I would want to see from a client, than someone who is doing these really intense 1 to 2 hour long sessions with super heavy weights, but then they, you know, can't train for the next 4 days because they're that sore. And what I personally would love to see, if someone's getting back in the gym, they're doing 15 to 30 minute, say their goal is something around strength or power, they're going to do, 15 to 30 minute nice and easy, 2 to 3, 2, maybe even 4, if at most, sessions a week, and then they're going to reevaluate in 4 to 6 weeks, see how their training is going, and then reassess from there. So that's what I think is a really healthy thing to do. And also, there's nothing wrong with like being less fit than you were before the COVID, like the COVID and the lockdown period. I think that's another reason and why people go too hard too fast. So that's my second reason, is please do not feel guilty for not being as fit as you used to be. No one is going to be. Like, seriously, to those people who have kept up their fitness at the same level that they were, in January or February of this year, I really commend you, because I certainly haven't. I try to train as hard as I can, not as hard as I can. I try my hardest to train as much as I can, but I also don't feel guilty, and I don't push myself beyond my means, because I know that that's not going to be best for me. And we've seen, it's that, logic of, if you give a kid really horrible PE sessions where that you're just forcing them to do a bunch of stuff that they hate, and they just grow resentful then of sport and physical activity, and they're more likely when they're older to not do it as much. So yeah, just don't feel guilty for not being as fit, because as I said before, it's consistency. That's all that matters. Please don't feel guilty for your not even lack of fitness, your reduced fitness. And say you're someone who has actually never trained before and now you're going into the gym. Awesome. I'm so proud of you. Good work. Good on you for taking the initiative to do what's best for you, because that is something that I think a lot of people need to think about when they're going into the gym. It's like, okay, well, why are you going into the gym? You can't just go to the gym because that's what everyone does. I go to the gym because I love going to the gym. I love making friends. I love how I feel from training. I love the idea of being a strong, physically fit woman. I love that idea, and that's what I want to be, because I just love the idea of it. That's all. And I love how I feel when I am like that. So obviously, I'm not a complete vegetable at the moment, but I'm certainly not as strong as I was before. But yeah, thirdly, so hydration and recovery. I doubt I need to bring up a research article for you to know this, but hydration is key. I'm not talking Gatorade. No, you do not need Gatorade if you're training for less than an hour and you aren't doing extreme, cardio or profusely sweating, less than 3 times a week. You don't need Gatorade for that. And even if you are, probably only half a bottle of Gatorade, if I'm being completely honest. So by hydration, I don't mean BCAAs. You can train perfectly well and you can recover perfectly well without BCAAs, as I discussed in my supplement podcast. But if you want to take them, that's fine with me. Just making sure that if you read the ingredients and you check with a doctor in case you have any medical issues that the BCAAs might have interfered with. But anyway, making sure you are drinking plenty of water. I'm sure that there is some calculation out there that tells you how much water you should be drinking. Honestly, I have no idea how much I should be drinking. I just try to drink 2 liters a day. Who knows if that is enough or too much. I feel fine. So maybe I should do that. Maybe I'll do a podcast on hydration. If you would appreciate that, let me know, comment or message me, or somehow contact me if you would like that. And then also, fueling the gains. That's going to sound so cringy, but if we do not eat enough calories or nutrients, we're not going to grow muscle mass. That's as simple as it is. And also, it might be tempting to not eat so much when you are getting back into training, because you're like, oh, I need to be healthy and skinny and whatever. No, healthy doesn't mean eating less. I think that's one of my main goals as a future exercise scientist and exercise physiologist. My main goal is to destigmatize food and destigmatize exercise, because why it became stigmatized in the first place and a scary thing in the first place really upsets me, and that's one of my major goals in this industry. Anyway, moving on. So yeah, you need to eat the right things as well. Don't just eat crappy foods. You need to fuel yourself. So if that means seeing a dietitian or a well-researched, well-educated nutritionist, that's fine. Go do that, because if you don't know something, it does not hurt to ask. It's going to benefit you from asking questions and resourcing people who do know the answer to your questions. So nothing wrong with seeing a nutritionist or dietitian for those sort of things. Fourthly is gluteal strength, which is linked to what's it called again? Why can't I remember? It's like lower cross. Hang on, I'll live Google. I'm pretty sure it's lower cross syndrome. Yeah. Or lower body cross sections syndrome, something like that. I'll put a link to this in the comment section. Anyway, so what can happen? And sorry, I do think I want to do a episode on gluteal strength and the importance of it, because I don't think enough realize. I think some people just go, oh yeah, I need good glutes, and then that's that over. I think we really need to understand the reason why and the physiology of it. So, but anyway, good glutes. In very brief summary, lower back issues can arise from poor glute strength. A bunch of other things can arise from poor glute strength. So that's why just train your glutes, please. I know it's really tempting to just do quads and hamstrings, but glutes too, please. And cross section syndrome. Just make sure you're equally training groups of muscles and the opposing groups of muscles, so agonist and antagonist. So agonist, the working muscle, antagonist, the opposite. So for example, biceps, your biceps on your arm, if you're doing, say, a bicep curl, the agonist muscle is the muscle shortening, and the antagonist is the one elongating. So my triceps are my antagonist in a bicep curl. My biceps are a agonist in a bicep curl. For a quick summary, so making sure you're equally training those opposing muscle groups. Another great example would be making sure you're training your hamstrings and glutes as well as you're training your quad/hip flexors. Another one is training your upper back and chest and deltoid muscles to avoid shoulder injuries, and those rotator cuff muscles as well, because nothing worse than getting injured, I don't know, a week into getting back into the gym. That's kind of embarrassing. So the next thing I want to talk about is SMART goals. I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but what they are is a way of setting goals, basically. So it's been found that the more vagueness that surrounds your goals, the less likely you are to reach them and obtain them. And a way to combat that is SMART goals, and which is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So what specific means is, making sure your goals are specific. For example, I know I keep going back to strength training, but I'm going to be a little bit biased with that because I do train strength a lot of the time. So what was I saying? Okay, strength training. So rather than saying I want to get stronger, that's a bit vague. So let's make it specific. I want to improve my front squat by 20%, or let's say, I don't know. And then eventually I want to be able to front squat 100 kilos. I know that's a lot, but let's just say something like that. And then the next is measurable. So be able to define it so that you can measure it. So okay, we're wanting to aim, say, to improve by 5 kilos in the first 3 weeks. I don't know. That's a random example. Attainable. Okay. Are you someone who has front squatted before? Because if you aren't, maybe asking yourself to be able to front squat 100 kilos is not the most attainable thing, because one, you don't know how good you are at front squatting. Maybe you just might not ever be able to front squat 100 kilos for whatever reason that may be. But attainable within a time frame that you are comfortable with, whether that be a year, 6 months, 3 months, whatever it is, it's attainable for you. Relevant, so it aligns within your values of your training. So if I'm trying to say I want to run a half marathon, why would I be focusing on strength training to the extent of 100 kilos? Because we know that strength training is great for cardio-based sports like long distance running, but strength training to that extent where you're able to do a one-off front squat, that's not going to benefit you at all. So it's not really relevant to your main goals or main purpose of training, if that makes sense. So, and then time-based, set a time for yourself. So I want to be able to do a front squat of 100 kilos by this time next year. So I'm going to give myself 12 months to be able to train for that. And that, I think, is a really smart way, for pardon the pun, of planning your training out. So the next thing I want to talk about is think creatively about how you can be active. So, for example, if you don't feel like training that day, whether it be because you have some delayed onset muscle soreness, because it's crappy weather outside, because you're super tired and you thought you'd be up to the challenge of training that day, but you've woken up and you've gone, no, I have had 4 hours of sleep because the neighbours were being annoying and having a domestic or something like that. And for whatever reason, you just, not because, you're being a bit pathetic and you're going, I can't be bothered training because I'm lazy. Not that that's pathetic, but I think you get my point. Is that if you really aren't, in the right mind to train, why? Let's think about why. Oh, it's because my neighbours were having a domestic and I couldn't get any sleep. Oh, it's because I didn't hydrate the last few weeks and my muscles are a little bit sore. I didn't eat right the last few weeks because I've been super busy. All right, well, if you're super busy, maybe you should take that time that you would be spending at the gym and think about your nutrition and plan your nutrition a little bit better so that you feel great in, say, a day or two, and then you can go to the gym and smash out a session that is going to be way more productive than if you were to go on the day that you woke up feeling gross because you didn't fuel your body with the food it needs. And then think of other ways you can be active. So say you're not up to, your normal F45 session. All right, that's okay, but you still feel like being active. So I know when I have a cold or something like that, I don't weightlift because, one, don't go to the gym with a cold. That's not nice. That's no one wants your sick ass coming into the gym. Secondly, I like to do yoga. So that is low impact yoga. That is so mainly just stretching and doing downward dog, to be completely honest. I feel like that I just get that moving. I'm not overextending myself. I'm within my means, if that makes sense. So, and that can be one way. Another way, say, okay, let's go from the example of you're feeling really tired. Yoga can be a great way. Having a nap, honestly, just have a nap. Spend that hour that you reserve for training to have a nap. Another way can be just going for a quick walk with the dog or, solo. What's another way to be active? Even stretching. Not enough people stretch. I've talked about that in my flexibility podcast. Do some stretching. That's going to benefit you in the long term. Why not do that? So if you feel like moving, think about how you can move without pushing yourself too far. And my final suggestion would be to get a buddy to keep you accountable. If that is how you work, for example, me, I find that I can keep myself accountable without a coach and without a training buddy. I find I personally don't like a training buddy because not many of my friends do strength training. And so, I don't really train with them because when they train, they want to train something different. They have different reasons for training. They just want to stay fit and healthy. I'm in there to stay fit and healthy and to be as strong as I physically possibly can. So yeah, we've got different reasons. And so I find I hold them back and they also hold me back from training the best that we both can. So, but if you are someone that you're like, oh, I seriously cannot go for a run around the town unless I've got my best friend Jared with me, if you're someone like that who literally just needs a buddy to keep you accountable, awesome. Figure out how you train and then that's going to obviously help you in the long run. That's actually surprise last reason is figure out how you train. For example, me, I can train pretty much any time in the day, but preferably I do in the morning. I really like getting up, training 7 till 7:45, 8:15, somewhere around that mark. This obviously I'm not going to train like that. When I finish uni, I'm going to sleep in. I'm going to sleep all day and probably wake up at 11, if that, and then go to the gym for half an hour and see what I can get done. But I'm talking regular training when we're back to COVID normal. And then I will start my work at around 9 and then just do my day, and then I don't have to worry about going to the gym in the afternoon. But say you're someone who doesn't work like that, you're someone that prefers training in the afternoon or the evening, or at 4 a.m. I'm not going to judge. 2 a.m. I don't care. Do whatever you need to do to get that training done. Obviously, without pushing yourself and keeping your safety. Don't go for a run at 2 a.m. That's not a good idea. What was I saying? Yeah, so figure out how you train. Say you're someone that hates running. Why are you running then? Like, don't run if you hate running. I know I push myself to run, but that's because I will not do cardio otherwise. So I think I need to figure out a bit more creative reasons, methods for me to get my cardio in, whether that be from doing HIIT or doing hill sprints. I do really love a hill sprint though. My favorite is this hill that I am near. Obviously, I'm not going to say which hill. And I do 5 by 100 meter hill sprints, and then I'm like, yep, that's 20 minutes of cardio done and dusted. Running to the hill, back to the hill, the sprints, back to the hill, back home, and doing the sprints, and that's about like 20 minutes or so of training, and I feel great afterwards. I feel, like someone's winded me, but I also feel really awesome afterwards. So those are my reasons. Oh my god, why am I like this today? I reckon it's because I haven't had enough sleep. Anyway, so those are my tips for going back into training, back to normal training, back to the gym, or however you train, whether that be tennis, golf, squash, F45, whatever you do, please do so safely. As I mentioned before, would hate if anything happened to you because you went in too quick or you didn't go back to training correctly. So I hope you really enjoyed this podcast episode, and please let me know what you thought. And now it is time for question of the week. Alrighty, now it is time for question of the week. So the question of the week is, how am I so good at handstands? So I have been a diver since I was 11, and then I quit when I was 17. So total, I started when I was just turned 11, quit when I was 17 and a half, so 8 years in total. And so as you can imagine, a lot of handstands involved in that. And then when I quit, I'm still coached, so I still had to be familiar with the techniques and sort of strength and conditioning that's involved with diving. So I just continued practicing handstands in the gym, but January this year, I made an effort to incorporate handstands more into my training. In addition to that, my partner is a gymnast, so he has been really great with helping with that. And one thing that I think people don't quite understand about handstands is it's not balancing. Like, of course it's balancing to some extent, but it's really like your core and gluteal and back strength that is really, really super duper key, and keeping your legs really tight and squeezed together. So it's not just like throwing your legs up in the air and hoping for the best. And I see a lot of people do that, and a lot of people arch their back as well. And if you're unaware, if you arch your back, it makes it really hard to engage your abdominal and core muscles. So yeah, one thing that I would recommend if you are someone who wants to, be able to do a handstand freestanding, don't even train handstands first. This is some Karate Kid type stuff, but train your deep core muscles and your core stabilizers. I'd imagine there's heaps of those exercises on Fitness Explained, my Instagram page. There's thousands more on the internet, but I would say you would need to have a really solid foundation of that before wanting to even try doing handstands. And then once you've got a really great base level, and when I say base level, I mean when you're lying on the floor, for example, a great indicator or test is when you're lying on the floor and you have your legs sort of 90-degree angle, so they're perpendicular to your torso, and then you can lower your legs down straight almost to the floor without arching your back, and your back is still touching the floor. That's a really great indicator that you are able to switch on and contract and use your deep core muscles and your abdominal muscles and not your back muscles, and you're able to differentiate them when you are exercising. That is good. Doing deep core stabilizers exercises are great for you in general, but a great test to see how they are is that exercise. So yeah, if one rewarding thing that you can do is sort of test yourself there, see what angle you can get at with a protractor or a ruler at home, and then do your core program for a few weeks, maybe 4 or 6 weeks, then do that test again and see how you go. And if you've improved quite a lot by your standards, if not, if you don't know if you've improved a lot, you feel free to email or DM me on Instagram, and I should be able to help. But yeah, I really recommend just training those muscles and then doing handstands against the wall, and look up tutorials for that. I mean, maybe I should do, I don't know, a YouTube or Instagram tutorial for handstands, but I'd imagine there's plenty out there already, so you don't need me to tell you what to do for that. And then once you go from there, I would then recommend doing just sort of teetering against the wall. So you do your handstand, but you're a few inches away from the wall, so that if you do wobble a bit, you can just place your feet on the wall and then go back or 1 foot on the wall and then go back to the free handstand. And then you can do free handstand from there. So I'm by no means a handstand master, as you can probably imagine from my Instagram. I just am someone who really loves walking around on their hands. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode today. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great week. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate it. And time for disclaimers. So please chuck us a follow on Instagram at fitness_explain_by_mil, or just Fitness Explained for short. I am working on getting us onto Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all other podcast streaming services. However, it's just a matter of time. If I have used any references, which I most likely have, it will be in the show notes / description bar below. If you could please follow and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Also, take a screenshot and put it on your socials and tag us. I'd also really appreciate that. Also, this podcast is a platform that's general in nature and not tailored to your specific needs. If you are struggling with your mental or physical health and well-being, please seek help from a medical professional such as a registered psychologist, registered and qualified dietitian, registered GP, registered exercise scientist, or physiologist. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.